Hello and welcome to Wellness Weekend. I am Mrs. William, the founder of Behind the Advocacy, and also Miss Unity South Africa 2025 SEMI Finalist. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Welcome to Wellness Weekend. This is the first episode. Today I will be joined by Dr. ANESU. We're going to be talking on things mental well-being and holistic health. So if you have any question for her, do make sure that you send them through.
Hello, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good and you?
I'm good. I'm good. Can you hear me okay? See me okay?
Can't hear you clearly.
Hmm. Let me try put my AirPods on and see.
Hello, everyone. Those who just joined us, this is Wellness Weekend, and I am Sibyl Boho, the founder of Behind the Advocacy and Miss Unity South Africa 2025 semi finalist. As I always say, the best introduction is self introduction. So, Anesu, please go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Amazing. Just checking you can hear me now, Mosibudi. Is that better?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly now.
Fantastic. Hi, everybody. Thank you to everyone who's joined this live. My name is Anesu. Intros I always find a little bit challenging because I've been hopping from one thing to the next, trying to find myself and my purpose. But I essentially started my career as a medical doctor, worked as a doctor for a couple of years, and then found that my own mental health, my own holistic sense of self was suffering. I didn't really manage to achieve the work-life balance that I was looking for or wanting. And in terms of my future, it just felt like medicine wasn't really aligning with the type of future that I wanted for myself. So I went into the field of yoga, mindfulness. I'd already been practicing that for my own self practice during medical school. And that's where I really found that connection with my patients or with my clients that I was searching for while still having that balance of my own mental well being and sense of self. So now I run an inclusive wellness center called the Nest Space with my business partner, Vanessa. I'm also a yoga teacher, a keynote speaker. I speak a lot about the importance of mindfulness, of mental well being, and just dedicating time in our day to day lives to become better for ourselves and for the people around us. I've spent some time on TV. I spent some time on Survivor.
Oh, network. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can hear you.
Yes. My first question is, what inspired you to get into the field of medical?
So I was, can you hear me? Are we good? the network is always something that you have to just roll with the punches with on IG Live. So if at any point you can't hear me, just let me know. But my dad is a doctor. I grew up in a family of doctors. It tends to be one of those things, like lawyers, like accountants, it kind of gets passed down in the family. And so that was really my first understanding and introduction to medicine. I would, my dad would come home from work and he'd tell me about an interesting case or a really profound interaction that he had with a patient. And I remember those stories really inspiring me because it felt like he was doing something of meaning with his life, with his day. And then I went to school and I loved biology. I loved learning about the human body. I also loved animals. So at first I thought I'd be a vet. That's kind of what I really thought I was going to do. But after just spending more time understanding the human body, that was really where I got inspired to want to be a doctor, to help others, but also to connect with people on a level that's a bit deeper than just the surface, and to be able to connect with people from different walks of life. Because that's one of the gifts that medicine gives you, is you meet absolutely everybody, often on their worst day. But if you do your job correctly, you end up being able to change their lives in a really profound way. And that's what really inspired me.
As a doctor yourself, how do you take care of your mental health?
That has definitely been a practice. So, when I first started studying medicine in medical school, I realized quite early on that it was quite competitive. You have to take your studies very seriously. You're often studying for long periods of time. And I just started to feel like I needed an outlet, something completely different to medicine. So that's when I started doing yoga as a self practice. I'd kind of been introduced to yoga from my mom when I was really, really small. She'd take me with her to yoga classes and things. So I'd already knew what yoga was, but it was really in med school that I started practicing it for myself. And then that helped me when I became a doctor to at least know what balance feels like. I think a lot of the time on your self-growth or self-care journey, the main thing that really highlights, that something needs to change is you've experienced what joy, balance, and self-care or well-being feels like before. And then when you have an experience where you aren't able to achieve that for long periods of time, you know that there's something wrong. So it was really when I started to feel like I wasn't sleeping well, I wasn't eating like I should have, I was starting to feel like I wanted to recede from social gatherings. I didn't have the energy to go out and talk to people anymore. And I was just waking up feeling exhausted. Those were all the signs, because I hadn't experienced feeling that way before. I was usually really excited to be social, to go out there and to do my job.
Hello.
Continue the conversation. Hi.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
No worries. No worries.
If anyone has any question, please send them through. We will deal with them very soon. What do you think are the most common causes of depression, and how can you overcome them?
Yeah, I think depression is much more common than we think it is. And I think the main thing that causes a lot of people to be depressed at the root is not truly knowing who they are, or not having a connection with who they truly are. And obviously that manifests as lots of different things, right? But if you don't know who you are, often you're in a career that doesn't suit you, which then leads to you feeling depressed and unmotivated about your work. It can mean that you're in a relationship that doesn't serve you because you're trying to fill a part of yourself that you don't understand with the energy of a different person. And also, of course, you know, a lot of people feel depressed because they feel like they don't know what they're doing with their lives. They don't have a sense of purpose or a sense of understanding. So I think that's really the root cause. And that manifests in lots of different factors: relationships breaking down, not being satisfied in your career, even having financial issues, right? And that then often gets attributed as being the cause of the depression, when actually it's that disconnection with self that people are really struggling with.
In a medical perspective, when do we become sure that a person has anxiety disorder?
Such a good question. So the main thing with mental health is it's a spectrum, right? So all of us experience feeling like we have a low mood, feeling like we're anxious, feeling like we're stressed, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a diagnosis of depression or of anxiety. So the main thing is obviously that change in your mood, feeling frequent episodes of either depression or anxiety. But the main thing that leads to a diagnosis is when your mood or your mental state starts to impact other areas of your life. If it starts to impact your occupation, if you're at school or if you're at work, you start being more absent, you stop performing, you're unable to concentrate or pay attention in meetings, that can be a sign that you then have a mental health diagnosis. Maybe it starts to impact the domain of your relationships, right? Either you start engaging in risky behaviors in your relationships, throwing yourselves into relationships that you know don't serve you, because if you're depressed, you have a low sense of self-worth. If you're anxious, maybe you don't want to go and interact with people anymore. You feel social anxiety. So you start receding from your relationships, becoming a hermit. Also a time frame thing. So if you start experiencing these symptoms, this mood or this breakdown in other periods of your life for about 3 months or more, that's when it's really time to diagnose. But often, many people who get diagnosed with depression or anxiety have periods of a low mood, periods of anxiety without anything else being affected. But because they don't know what to do with those feelings or don't have tools to deal with those aspects of their mental well-being, it then starts getting worse and worse and more chronic and long-standing, and eventually leads to a diagnosis of a mental health condition. Yeah.
I actually wanted to ask about my personal experiences, but I don't remember most of them.
Yeah.
But like growing up, I used to always be afraid of going somewhere alone.
Yes.
So I don't like even now, sometimes I still feel like I always think something wrong's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like
Absolutely. That's such a big thing. And I think what you're bringing up is so important, because when it comes to mental well-being, but actually all aspects of our health, it's interconnected to everything around us, right? That's when we talk about holistic health. Holistic health is seeing health not just in terms of your diagnosis or how your physical body all the time. Or it could even be the physical environment that you navigate in. Maybe you don't feel fully safe, fully like you can let your guard down in that physical environment because you've heard of things that have happened before. So from a holistic health standpoint, you look at all of those different circumstances and then you say, okay, that is the root cause of why you might be feeling this way. Instead of just saying, oh, okay, Musibudi needs therapy because she doesn't feel comfortable leaving the house. Instead, it's like, yeah, maybe that is something that you need, but maybe it's also about looking at your community, looking at what's happening around you, what you're absorbing in the news, what you're consuming on social media, what is constantly being shown to you. All of those things can impact our mental health, especially. So when you do feel yourself feeling like you're anxious when you shouldn't be, or you're more down or depressed when you shouldn't be, it's really useful to have like a more holistic and open mindset of what the root cause is to find a real solution.
How can you best support people with mental health disorders, especially children?
Such a good question. I mean, especially with kids, I think the first thing to do is have conversations like this, right? Where we normalize talking about mental health conditions. We normalize people talking about the difficult aspects of being human, how it's very common to feel lost in your life, how it's very common to feel unseen or feel like you don't know who you are. And I think when we start having these conversations at school from a very early age, even preschool, just like we learn our ABCs, we should also be learning about the different descriptions of emotion, how to express emotion, how to reach out for help when we're not okay, showing vulnerability, speaking about things that are difficult. And I think that's really the first place to start, where we start to see things like how to be a happy human being, a fulfilled human being, as just as important as learning about maths and English and geography. We should really be starting with equipping children with the tools of how to deal with themselves first before we even start teaching them about the world around them. And I think that, like you say, you know, conversations at home. I can't remember when I was growing up where I remember adults having a conversation about how they were struggling or that they weren't okay, you know, and that's the stuff that children need to see in order to feel like it's safe for them to talk about their struggles as well. Yeah.
That is definitely why I created Behind the Advocacy, because I realized that there is so much lack of information
Yes.
that needs to be put there. So every time we get new information, we put it out there, or we have people like you here to talk about this. So I believe it is very important. We're going to make the world a better place if we speak about these things.
Absolutely. Totally.
What is the inspiration, the vision, and the mission behind the Nest Space?
So me and my business partner co-own and run the Nest Space, and we both in different ways found yoga and mindfulness to be like a refuge for us or a healing tool for us on our mental health journeys. But what we found was when we went to yoga studios, when we tried to find guided meditations, where we listened to podcasts about breath work, that it was never women of color or African women or people from our cultural groups who were holding those spaces or leading those conversations. And mental health, like we've spoken about already, is very holistic. So my experience as a Black woman is definitely going to inform my mental health. You know, the racial interactions I have with people, how I'm treated in society, how I show up into spaces, and how much of myself I feel like I can show to other people definitely plays a role in the traumas I've experienced, my self-esteem and my self-confidence. So when you go into a healing space and you feel like you have to hide certain parts of yourself because the person holding that space is different to you, they don't look like you, maybe they don't even want to talk about racial politics, maybe they have no understanding at all of what it means to be a person of color, it becomes really difficult to heal fully and to open yourself up and be vulnerable. And also, of course, just like in other spaces, you experience microaggressions, you experience people treating you a certain way because you're a woman of color. So we really felt, both of us, like there was a lack of safe space for people who are usually othered in wellness communities to be themselves, whether it was people of color, whether it was people who were part of the queer community, people with disabilities, actually the people who have a lot of healing to do because of how society treats them. Those people usually get othered in spaces where you're practicing yoga, mindfulness, or you're trying to heal. And even when it comes to access to healing, access to a therapist, access to someone who will help you to deal with your issues, more often than not, it's really hard to find a Black female therapist. It's more often than not hard to find a Reiki practitioner or a hypnotherapist of color. So that was really our inspiration, wanting to create a space where people felt represented, where people felt like they had healers who looked like them, who understood them, and where they could show up as their true selves in those spaces of healing.
What kind of holistic services are available at the nest space, and how do we find the nest space?
Okay, so you can find us on all of our social media platforms at the Nest Space ZA. And we've tried to be as holistic as possible. So we have daily yoga classes. All of our yoga classes are for yogis of all experience levels, whether you have never heard of yoga before, whether you've been practicing yoga for 20 years. Our ethos is that those two people can go to the same yoga class and still derive benefits. So we've got our daily yoga classes. We've also got a weekly meditation class that happens on Sunday for those who want experience with a guided and silent meditation. And then we try to educate people. So we've got a yoga teacher training course for people who want to take their understanding of spirituality a bit deeper. Maybe you want to be a yoga teacher. That's what those courses are for. But we also have short courses on things like breath work, meditation, because like you say, Masubudi, a lot of people don't know what these things are, where they come from. In certain cultures,
Instagram just kicked us out. I don't know why. But I am back. I'm not going to invite her in. I have only a few questions left. Then you guys can ask your own questions. We're back.
awesome, we are back.
Yeah, we were on the services by the nest space.
Yeah.
Were you done with that?
Yeah, I think so. So I mentioned our yoga, our meditation classes, our teacher training, and our short courses. And then the last thing would just be that we try to make the space open to anyone who wants to use it. So if they're healers who want to host their own events, their own workshops, they are more than welcome to collaborate us by using the space. We've had people celebrate their birthdays, their baby showers with us. So it really is supposed to be a community space along with being a space where we offer our services.
Taking care of our holistic health means we take care of our emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being. So, what 5 tips can you give us to, yeah,
to to improve our overall well-being. Yeah. I found that when it comes to improving your well-being, the easier the better, really, right? It's all about small steps. And I think that a lot of the time we think about making big changes to our routines and then we fail, and then that makes us feel more stressed out. And then we try to set an even bigger goal, and then we fail, and it ends up being a vicious cycle. So I like to keep it simple and easy to start so that I feel like I'm winning. And then that motivation helps you to make bigger changes over time. So the main thing I think is just being a little bit more intentional about your consumption, right? And consuming and consumption is a wide variety of things. It's obviously what you eat to keep yourself going. So being intentional about what you're eating, is it healthy, whole foods, mainly plant-based? Obviously, we can add in some protein if you need it and tailor it according to your body. But healthy food is hugely important because that's the fuel you're relying on for your body. But besides what you're consuming, how are you consuming it? When you eat, are you watching TV? Are you on your phone? Are you really taking in every mouthful? Are you on the go when you're eating? So how we eat is almost just as important as what we eat. And I find a lot of the time, because we are distracting ourselves when we're eating, we're not actually aware of what we're eating. When you take the time to really think about what you're putting into your body in that moment, that then makes it easier to make healthy choices. Whereas if you're distracting yourself and just eating on the go in a rush all the time, obviously you're not going to be aware of what you're putting in your body because you're focusing on the next thing that you're going to be doing. So consumption in terms of food is really huge, but that's also what we're taking in from the world around us. Are you listening to the news all the time? Are you constantly stressed? On social media, are you following accounts that you compare yourself to? Is that what your algorithm shows you every day? Things that you're trying to attain, but nothing that really affirms what you're doing right now. So consumption in terms of information as well, very, very big. And then it's down to how you're spending your day, and again, it's about coming into the present moment and really being in that moment for yourself. So when you're having a conversation with your friend, are you really listening to what they're saying to you? Or are you just thinking about what you want to say? Are you thinking about what's coming next, how much time you have? And I think being more intentional, more mindful, and more present is the best way to start, and then filtering that into everything that you're doing. How are you breathing? Let's start with that. We've been breathing since the day that we were born, but most of us aren't aware of how we're breathing. Are you holding your breath? Are you breathing really fast and quick? And the breath is something really simple, but really fundamental when it comes to your well-being, because long, deep, easy breaths affect your entire physiology. So coming into the present moment, let go of the past. It's already happened. You've said those conversations. You've maybe made a mistake or two, but you can't control it. So bring your thoughts from the past into the moment. Let go of the future. You have no idea what's going to happen anyway. Life can change in a second. Bring those thoughts into the present moment. And just like we are right now, anyone who's watching, how are you sitting? Are you breathing? Is your body tense? Are you focused on something other than the right now? Come into this moment. And often just that simple act has a ripple effect on everything else that you do. Because like we said, our health is holistic, right? So when we listen more intensely to our relationships, when we come into the present moment just with ourselves and our physical body, that affects everything that has to do with us and how we're interacting with the world around us.
I love reality game shows, and I know you're on Survivor South Africa Immunity Island. So, what advice do you have for people who really want to partake in those type of reality shows in terms of going into the place and their mindset, setting their mindset in the competition?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is reality TV is really broad, right? There's like something for everybody. You've got Survivor, where you're out in the wild. You've got the cooking reality shows, MasterChef, all of those. We've got the dating reality shows for those trying to find love. So the first thing when wanting to go into reality TV is you really want to match your loves, your aspirations, your dreams, the things that come naturally to you, to the type of show that you're applying for. If you're someone who is not really keen on being outside, you're probably not going to enjoy Survivor too much. Maybe something where you're in a house of people socializing, maybe that's your strength. maybe a Big Brother or a dating reality show is more suited to you. So that's the first thing. Choose a genre of reality TV that suits you. The second thing is, before you even apply, try to make to see. And then that goes to the application process as well. Be as authentic as you really can be. What a lot of people don't understand about reality shows is they don't just cast you as an individual, they cast the entire cast because they want to see how everybody in the production works together. So if you aren't your authentic self because you're trying to pretend to be someone else for a previous season or another celebrity that you know, you're already counting yourself out because they are wanting a new cast, a different type of dynamic on the show. So the more authentic you can be, the better. That's what they're really looking for. And then when you're on screen in production, try to ignore the cameras. That's my best advice. Ignore the fact that you're on TV. The more that you start thinking about, your aunt at home and what she's going to think about what you're saying or how you're going to come across to people, the more it will freak you out. So you really need to just be present in production, ignore the cameras, don't even think about how you're going to come across to other people. Just try to be your authentic self. And then the last, because this is a whole process, is once the show is on air, really tune out the negative noise. Don't go looking for comments that are negative. Don't go searching for the trolls. Rather watch the show with the people who love you and use.
Third time's a charm. So I only have two questions left for her. Then we're gonna finish. So I'm gonna post this on.
Okay. Third time's
Oh,
the best time.
yes, definitely. So my question is, what advice do you have for those wanting to embark on a journey to become TV presenters like myself?
So first things first, get nice and comfortable talking in public, and then more and more comfortable with talking on camera. Things like hosting IG lives is amazing because, as you can see, the signal has different plans. Things have to happen on the fly, and you really get comfortable with being uncomfortable in uncontrollable situations. So that's a really, really great place to start. And then engaging with doing something like this in person. So whether it's hosting panel discussions or providing talks at gatherings, and this can even be, it doesn't even have to be something you're paid to do. Maybe you just become the person who gives the speech at your friends' weddings or at their birthdays, and you just become that person just to build your comfort level at talking to people, asking people questions, and engaging with people in real life. And then it's bit by bit by bit. So I think a lot of people often want to start with TV, but it's really, really useful to have a track record. So maybe it's something like, if you're at university, you've got your university radio and you start doing conversations on your university radio show. And then that elevates to maybe your community radio. And eventually you become more and more comfortable speaking to a mic, understanding the technicalities of sound, comfortable fluffing on a line, dealing with different situations. And then you have at least something to show people when it comes to you wanting to present. And you also have a little bit of a network within the industry, because a lot of people tend to think that TV is just separate, but a lot of different media come together. The pageant world feeds into the TV world, which feeds into the radio world and the acting world. So it's really nice to try your hand at lots of different things. And I've also had a lot of people have the experience where when they delve into these different forms of media, they actually find that they prefer to be on the production side of things. Maybe you start off thinking that you want to be a presenter, but actually you feel much more comfortable being a director or being a writer. So it's really nice to have flexibility and to just flex your muscles at showing out your personality, speaking publicly, regardless of whether that's on a virtual platform like this, a family platform, or something that's a little bit bigger. But take it step by step and trust in your own journey. Building that confidence takes time, but it's so worthwhile to do that before you get to your dream. Because then you would have built your self-esteem and your self-belief before you even needed to be in those high pressure environments.
I'm on the right track, I see. I'm on the right
Yes,
track.
you are. Just trying to be subtle, but you're there, you're there.
There's a question. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Will you ever go on a hot air balloon ride?
Absolutely. So I think this ties into your question just now, is when you're presenting, prepare for the unexpected. You'll be asked to do things outside of your wildest dreams. So yes, Fez and I went on a hot air balloon in Namibia, which was incredible. We also did a lot of other height-related stuff, jumping off gorges, swinging off high places, which was nerve-wracking for me, very nerve-wracking. We did skydiving as well. But yes, I'm kind of all about adventure. And I think, again, that goes back to, we were talking about if someone wants to do reality TV, right? What the tips are. Think about the fact that if you do an adventure show, an amazing race, a survivor, a fear factor, that's what you will be forced to do on camera. You'll have to face your fears. You'll have to do something about adrenaline. So if that's not your thing and you've got phobias, then try a different avenue. Maybe cooking is what you love to do, or they've got singing, dancing shows now. So you can really choose something that celebrates your strengths when it comes to TV.
It is Women's Month. What message do you have for all the women and young girls across the globe?
I think for me, for the longest time when I was growing up, I wasn't really a girl's girl. Like, I enjoyed wearing shorts, I'd run around barefoot. I was like a tomboy, I liked climbing trees. And I used to think that there was something wrong with me or something missing. Like, I didn't feel like there was a place for me to be that type of girl or that type of woman. And what's really been important for me is recognizing that womanhood can look like so many different things. There's no specific way you have to dress, way you have to talk, hair you have to have, self-care routine you have to follow, role you have to play in your relationships or your family. There's no rule book to being a woman. And I think defining that for yourself from a very early age and celebrating what you add to that definition is really, really important for us as women, because there are many, many boxes that people try to put us in, be it in our families, be it in our work environments, be it in our society. And a lot of us don't fit those roles. You might love to get would be my advice.
There is a comment in the question box. I get lost, guys. Let
Okay,
me
I see. I'm also lost here.
read the whole thing. Hi, dog. I'm Chris. I'm Zimbabwean, and I love you and Fez. I'm a model too, about to represent Zimbabwe at Mr. Global.
Yeah.
Please say hi to the and let him know he inspires me.
Wow, that is amazing. Congratulations on already representing Zim. All the best on your journey. I mean, I haven't been participating in pageants, but having been along the ride with Fez, it's a whole other world, but an incredible experience. And I think a lot of the time people focus on the title, and because of that, they miss out on the real gift and prize, which is the journey, the people that you meet, the opportunities that you have along the way, all of the delegates that you're going to come across at Mr. Global. So sink into the journey. Don't focus on the end point and the finish line. That's not really where the magic of the pageant world is. Of course, it's lovely to get a title. Not sure if you caught my answer. Mercy, are you there? Yes, I can see you and hear you now.
Yeah. So, Junior, congratulations on being Mr. Global Zimbabwe. I actually have a series called the Power of Relationship series, and if you will love, I would love to be there. So please do send me a DM. And
You see, there's the opportunities I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. There we go.
David says, I love to ask you a question. How do you get your clients as a yoga coach, given that I am a website designer who can help you further by implementing my service?
Yeah. So I think that's a really good question for all entrepreneurs, actually, how you get yourself out there. We obviously rely on social media and our website a lot. But what I decided, because my path was a little bit unconventional, we didn't have a lot of money to spend on professional services, is I chose to upskill myself. So I did a web developing course. I did a course on digital marketing and social media, so that I could kind of take that under my own wing, design our website, handle our social media without having to have the capital to pay someone else to do it. So that would be my main advice for entrepreneurs. If you can upskill, then do it. Obviously, you don't have to go the whole way, but there's something about knowing how to do most of what your business needs that's really, really powerful, because then when you do get someone like David to design your website, you know what to ask for, you know exactly what you need, and you've got a little bit of experience in that field of your business as well. So really, really great question. And those IT skills, hey, of marketing, branding, graphic design, web design are invaluable to any small business. It's so, so useful to have those skills.
Does anyone have any questions? I'm only gonna take 2 questions because we've done this 3 times. So yeah, Instagram keeps kicking us out, but we come back stronger.
Musibudi, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you how your journey's been thus far. I mean, you've done these lives with so many incredible people. How are you finding it? It's also not easy organizing those things and holding these interactions. So yeah, how has things been for you?
It has been amazing, although obviously having to contact people like you, people with a large following, is hard. But because I believe in my brand, I believe in what I'm doing, I go for it. And before I even click that send button, I always say, God, if it's meant to be, please let it be. I mean, I've had
Amazing.
people like Luciera on my other series, and I've also had Leroy Mutanzi. I've also had people like, you know, man, sometimes I ask myself how this is able to happen. So that, like, yeah, even today, I was
It's
nervous.
amazing.
As time goes, today, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm doing this life with ANESU. What? And I asked myself, wow, like I was so nervous, but because I want this, because I knew that many people were gonna learn from this. So, which is why the moment I entered here, I was
Yeah,
at peace.
that's
So go for it. Just
amazing.
no, I always tell people that no name is too big. Like no name is too big. You can send that email, you can send that Instagram DM, and you'll be surprised because some people respond early. I was also surprised with you. Like